At our wedding, my wife raised her glass and said, "This dance is for the man I've secretly loved for 10 years." She walked past me and stopped in front of my brother. The room applauded. Until I asked my father one question. Then my wife went pale, and my brother collapsed. I should have known something was off when my wife kept checking her phone during our 10th anniversary party. But I was too busy making sure the champagne stayed cold and the guests stayed happy to pay attention to the obvious. I'm a horologist. I restore antique watches and clocks for collectors and museums. My whole life revolves around precision, timing, mechanisms working in perfect sync. Ironic, considering I missed every warning sign ticking right in front of me. The venue was packed. 150 guests, maybe more. My wife Eleanor had insisted on the Botanical Gardens glass pavilion, said the natural light would be perfect. She knew about perfect light, spent her days curating contemporary art at the city's biggest museum. Tonight she looked flawless in that black dress I'd bought her in Florence last year. Every man in the room kept stealing glances. My brother Tom showed up late, of course. Mr. Important research scientist, working on gene editing that would change the world. He hugged me quick, like always, then spent 5 minutes explaining CRISPR to anyone who'd listen. Dad practically glowed every time Tom opened his mouth. 35 years old and I still watched my father's eyes follow his favorite son around the room. "Beautiful party," Dad said, gripping his whiskey. He managed private wealth trusts at the family bank, same institution his father built. Everything about him screamed old money control. Eleanor outdid herself. She had. Every detail was museum quality perfect. The flowers, the catering, even the jazz quartet she'd hired. She'd been planning this for months, staying up late with her lists and vendors and spreadsheets. I'd offered to help but she'd insisted on handling everything. "You just show up and look handsome," she'd said. Now she was standing near the bandstand, champagne flute trembling slightly in her hand. The quartet had stopped playing. She clinked her glass until the crowd quieted. "Thank you all for celebrating with us tonight," she began. Her voice carried that curator confidence she used during exhibitions. 10 years ago, I married a wonderful man. The crowd made those appreciative sounds crowds make. I smiled, started walking toward her. "But tonight," she continued, "I need to be honest. Completely honest." The room shifted. That subtle tension when everyone senses something's about to go sideways. "This dance, this moment, is for the man I've secretly loved for 10 years. The man I should have chosen." My legs stopped working. Just stopped, like someone had pulled my mainspring. Eleanor stepped down from the platform. Walked straight through the crowd. Passed me like I was furniture. And stopped directly in front of Tom. The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds. Then she grabbed his face with both hands and kissed him. Not a mistake. Not a drunken stumble. A kiss that had been waiting a decade to happen. The applause that followed was the sound of 150 people not knowing what else to do. My brain did that thing where it slows everything down. Tom's hands hovering, not knowing whether to push her away or pull her closer. Dad's whiskey glass freezing halfway to his lips. The photographer lowering his camera like he'd just witnessed a crime. Someone laughed nervously. Then another. Soon the whole room was pretending this was planned, some elaborate anniversary surprise. Eleanor finally pulled back from Tom, her lipstick smeared across his mouth. She turned to the crowd with this triumphant smile, like she'd just unveiled her latest exhibition. "Dance with me," she said to him. Loud enough for everyone to hear. The quartet started playing again because what else could they do? My wife and my brother swayed to some jazz standard while I stood there like a broken clock, all my gear stripped. But here's the thing about being a horologist, you learn to see patterns. Mechanisms. The tiny imperfections that tell you something's wrong long before the whole system fails. 6 months ago, I'd been helping Dad organize his estate documents. Routine stuff. He wanted me to understand the family trusts before he got too old to explain them properly. That's when I noticed the first withdrawal. $50,000 from a trust account, labeled investment opportunity. Same day Eleanor flew to Miami for an art fair. Same day Tom presented at a genetics conference in Miami. I'd laughed it off. Coincidence. Miami's a big city. But then I started noticing other things. Eleanor's phone lighting up with texts at midnight, screen always face down. Cash withdrawals from our joint account, $500 here, $1,000 there. Gallery expenses, she'd say. "You know how these artists only take cash?" Tom suddenly had money for a new Tesla. Said he'd made some smart biotech investments. Dad bragged about it for weeks, his genius son playing the market. 3 months ago, I'd grabbed Eleanor's iPad to check the weather. Her messages were still open. Most were deleted, but the recent ones remained. Tom asking if she was ready for tonight. Eleanor responding with he doesn't suspect anything. I became obsessed. Not in some crazy stalker way, methodical, like restoring a complicated movement. Screenshot everything. Document patterns. Track timestamps. The gallery trips always matched Tom's conference schedule. The cash withdrawals lined up with deposits into Tom's investment accounts. Dad had shown me the statements, proud of his son's success. There was a whole hidden mechanism running parallel to my life. 2 weeks ago, I'd found something else in Dad's office. A trust amendment, freshly drafted but already notarized. It removed me as beneficiary of the family's main trust, naming Tom as sole inheritor. The signature at the bottom was mine. Except I'd never signed it. The notary seal belonged to Dad's secretary. She'd been on vacation in Europe for 3 weeks. The amendment was dated 5 days ago. That's when I knew this wasn't just an affair. This was theft. I sat in that office staring at my forged signature for an hour. The smart move would have been confronting them immediately. The smart move would have been calling a lawyer. Instead, I called my friend Dimitri. Dimitri wasn't exactly a forensic accountant, more like someone who understood how money disappears and reappears. We'd met years ago when he needed a vintage Patek Philippe authenticated. Now he helped people track down hidden assets and ugly divorces. Bring everything, he said after I explained. And I mean everything. We met at his office after midnight. By 3 a.m., we'd mapped out 3 years of financial fraud. The pattern was brilliant, actually. Small transfers through multiple trusts, each one just under reporting thresholds. Tom would request research funding from Dad's discretionary accounts. Eleanor would bill the same trusts for art consultation. The money would circle back through Tom's accounts, then disappear into investments that didn't exist. Your father's either complicit or the dumbest banker alive, Dimitri said. I knew which one. The next week, I became a different person. Installed recovery software on every shared device. Found deleted messages going back 2 years. Eleanor calling me pathetically trusting. Tom joking about how I spent more time with dead clocks than my living wife. Both of them laughing, actually laughing, about the honeymoon I was planning while they moved money out of my inheritance. I planted a voice recorder in my workshop. Eleanor thought I spent too much time there anyway, perfect place for her to make calls. Sure enough, Tuesday afternoon. After the anniversary party, we're done pretending. Her voice, clear as crystal. Your dad says the trust amendment will process Monday morning. We just need to get through the weekend. Tom's response, you sure he won't check the accounts? He's too busy planning his stupid speech about our perfect marriage. I scheduled lunch with Dad that Thursday. Let him drink 3 martinis. Started talking about estate planning, how grateful I was for his guidance. His tongue got loose, the way it always did after gin. You know, son, sometimes the family money needs to go where it'll grow. Tom understands markets. You understand. Clocks. The trust amendments you've been working on, I said carefully. Smart thinking. He actually smiled. Monday morning, everything changes. Your brother's going to build an empire. Don't worry, he'll take care of you. I recorded the whole conversation. The morning of our anniversary, I woke up at 5 a.m. Eleanor was still asleep, probably dreaming about her new life with Tom. I drove to the federal building downtown. Filed a complaint for wire fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. The FBI agent seemed particularly interested in the forged notary seal, that made it interstate fraud since Dad's bank operated across state lines. We'll need to move on this quickly, she said. Can you guarantee they'll all be in one location tonight? I showed her the anniversary invitation. By noon, I was at the venue with my friend from the audio shop. We tested the projector system 3 times. Every document displayed perfectly. Every audio file crystal clear. You sure about this? He asked. I looked at the empty pavilion, imagining it full of guests in a few hours. Check the resolution on those bank statements again. I want everyone in the back row to see every digit. Back at the party, Eleanor and Tom were still dancing. I watched them for another 10 seconds, then walked to the cake table. Picked up the envelope I'd placed there earlier. Nobody noticed, they were all too busy pretending this was normal. Excuse me, I said into the microphone. My voice didn't shake. 30 years of steady hands working on delicate mechanisms, I knew how to control my movements. I'd like to share something special for our anniversary. Eleanor stopped dancing. Her face did this quick calculation, probably wondering if I was about to make a scene. Tom stepped back from her, guilty hands dropping to his sides. 10 years of marriage teaches you about timing, I continued. When to wind a watch. When to let it run down. When to take the whole mechanism apart. I held up the envelope. This morning at 9 a.m., I filed some paperwork. But before we get to that, I thought everyone should see what a decade of trust looks like. I nodded to my friend in the back. The projector flickered to life. The first image filled the wall, a trust amendment with my forged signature. That's my name, I said conversationally. But not my handwriting. Interesting, right? Dad stood up so fast his chair fell backward. What the hell are you doing? Showing our guests some art. Eleanor loves exhibitions. The next slide, bank transfers. Dozens of them. Arrows mapping money from trust accounts to Tom's investments. $3 million, I announced. Moved over 3 years. Creative accounting, Dad. Did you teach them that? Eleanor's voice cut through the murmuring crowd. Those are private documents. You can't. Actually, I can. They're my accounts too. The audio started playing. Eleanor's voice filled the pavilion. After the anniversary party, we're done pretending. Then Tom, you sure he won't check the accounts? Then Eleanor again, he's too busy planning his stupid speech about our perfect marriage. The room went silent except for the recording. Every single guest heard my wife and brother laughing about their scheme. Turn it off. Tom rushed toward the projector. There's more, I said. Dad's voice came next, drunk and clear. Monday morning, everything changes. Your brother's going to build an empire. Don't worry, he'll take care of you. Tom stopped moving. His face went from red to white in seconds. He grabbed the table, chest heaving. Can't breathe, he gasped. Then louder, can't. He collapsed. Full body, knees to floor to sprawled out. Someone screamed. People rushed forward. Call 911. Eleanor shrieked, dropping beside him. No need, I said. Because that's when the doors opened. Paramedics rushed in like they'd been waiting. Which they had. Behind them came the police. Not just uniforms, suits. The kind that flash federal badges. The lead agent walked straight to my father. Mr. Garrison? We need to discuss some banking irregularities. FBI Financial Crimes Division. The FBI agent kept talking while paramedics worked on Tom. Your bank's been on our radar for 18 months. Suspicious trust activities. We just needed someone inside to confirm the pattern. Dad's mouth opened and closed like a broken automaton. I want my lawyer. Good idea, the agent said. You'll need one who understands federal sentencing guidelines. Tom was breathing again, sitting up against Eleanor. Not a heart attack, panic attack. He knew what those documents meant. Forgery of a notary seal is a federal crime. Wire fraud across state lines adds another decade. Conspiracy to commit fraud? That's the cherry on top. Mr. Thomas Garrison, another agent approached. We need to discuss a notarized document dated 5 days ago. She was in Europe, Tom whispered. The notary was in Europe. We know, the agent smiled. We have her statement. Eleanor stood up slowly, her perfect dress wrinkled, her perfect makeup smeared. She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You planned this? I restore things for a living, I said. I know when something's broken beyond repair. The agents were efficient. Dad first, something about preserving evidence at the bank. Tom next, still shaking as they read him his rights. Eleanor wasn't arrested, not yet, but an agent handed her a card. We'll need to discuss your involvement. Tomorrow morning, with your attorney present. The guests leaked out in waves, nobody making eye contact. The photographer had kept shooting, probably the most interesting wedding he'd ever covered. The quartet packed up their instruments in silence. Eleanor and I stood alone in the ruins of our anniversary party. I did love you, she said. In the beginning. When did it change? When I realized you loved dead things more than living ones. You mean when you realized Tom would inherit more? She didn't deny it. What happens now? I pulled out my phone, showed her an email from my lawyer. Divorce papers were filed yesterday. The prenup's ironclad, infidelity clause. You get nothing from my family's assets. Our house, transferred to an LLC 2 weeks ago. Legal, since it was purchased with my inheritance. My job? The museum board already knows. Dimitri sent them everything an hour ago. She actually laughed. Bitter, broken. You really did plan everything. I learned from watching you three. Except I didn't need co-conspirators. 3 months later. Tom took a plea deal. 15 years, out in 7 with good behavior. The biotech startup fired him before the indictment was unsealed. Dad lost his banking license, got 5 years minimum security. The family bank's under federal oversight. His reputation's gone, 40 years building a legacy, destroyed by greed. Eleanor left the state. Last I heard, she was teaching art classes at a community center in Montana. We're officially divorced. My workshop's never been busier. Turns out, people trust a man who pays attention to details. I'm restoring a 1920s pocket watch now. The owner thought it was beyond saving, too much damage, too many missing pieces. But that's the thing about mechanisms. Some can be fixed. Others need to be completely replaced. You just need to know which is which. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you really like our videos, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.